the fact that I've decided to do it and that I'm back at the start line itself is a big victory, and what follows is over the victories. It's actually a continuation of the old story, but I want to finish that story. It's still, the final chapter is not written yet. I enjoyed my experience in Golden Globe race last time. Sailing without technology meant that I was very close to the sea. I was observing things that otherwise I wouldn't see. And these are the things that I never noticed when I was sailing a bigger boat with all modern technology. When somebody asked me when I was sailing in a much bigger boat, what is the weather? And I went to the internet to check what was the weather, and he said, no, you go out and check and tell me what's the weather. So yes, there's a big difference, and I really love this. It's not a race where you stare at a screen, push buttons and do things. You have to really be hands-on.
Here is Abhilash Tomy, second place in the 2022 Golden Globe race, and having just finished probably around 30,000 miles around the world. Abhilash, you probably, unlike any other skipper left in the race, you suffered equipment failure more than anyone else. Can you just talk me through just how you got to grips with that and how you made those repairs?
Yes, the reason why it happened was because I didn't get enough time to prepare the boat the way I would have wanted it to. So I had a lot of little problems. The first one was my freshwater pump broke, and then I didn't have a spare. So I resorted to opening the tank and taking out 5 liters at a time and make it last for 5 days. So yeah, that's how it started. And then in the Indian Ocean I had a batten break, and then that got stuck in a stay. And when I was taking a reef, it ripped my mainsail. I took it down and stitched it. These are like small problems, but then something more interesting happened. I had the paddle of the wind vane broke in the Indian Ocean. I had 2 spares. So I was expecting that between the 2 spares I should be able to finish the circumnavigation, because I'd used the first one for 2,000 miles qualification passage, and then it sailed from here all the way up to the middle of the Indian Ocean. But eventually they both broke in the Pacific, and I had to innovate. So the first thing I did is I took off a hatch cover of the storage inside, and I stuck it. And since the boat was sailing upwind, it was quite well balanced. And this is off Cape, off the coast of Chile. And after the upwind leg was over, I realized that this was not able to give enough power to. It was small. It was not able to give enough power to the rudder. So I shaped a small one and stuck it there. Made one, cut one with a hacksaw blade. And again, that couldn't give enough power. Then for a bigger one, that broke. Broke open my toilet door and made a bigger blade. That also broke. And finally, I thought, and I realized, why not try the anchor? So I took out the stock of the fortress anchor and fit perfectly, although it was not wide enough. So the power was less, but it really worked, and it worked from Cape Horn to here. On one day I had a running backstay part, and the mainsail split from luff to leech. So that is 26 hours of working, and I replaced the running backstay with one of the guardrails, because I realized that the size of the wire was same. And for the mainsail I took it down and took it inside the boat and stitched it, and took 26 hours to just finish the stitching and the mast job. And after that I took a 1-hour nap, and when the wind died, I put the sail back on. I had some issues with the batteries, because of which I could not operate the HF. And towards the end of the voyage, I realized it was not the batteries, but a fuse that looked okay but wasn't okay, and a cable that had deteriorated. So I fabricated another cable with some spare wire, and I bypassed the fuse, and thankfully it worked in the last few days when I was really stuck in no wind and all. The in the knockdown, I had the mast of the wind generator puncture a hole in the deck. So water was coming in, and it was like flying at an angle like that, both of them. I had to dismantle both the wind generators and seal that hole. That was also not such a big job. What else? Yeah, my VHF antenna for some reason was not giving me any range, and I realized that I had a spare emergency antenna on board, and I stuck that here, this one, and well, it gives me 10 miles range, which is much better than the one on top of the mast. So, oh yeah, the most interesting thing was the halyard for the Yankee parted one day close to the Falklands, and the halyard went all the way up. I didn't want to climb up in 25 knot winds, so I used the spinnaker halyard, tied a lot of fishing hooks to that, sent it up with a tail, snagged the the halyard on the hooks, and got it down. I think that was really innovative.
And did you do general daily checks on the board, walk around, check gear? Just talk to me about that routine and the routine with your engine.
Well, engine I really didn't use too much of it, but yes, when the mast of the wind generator, kind of got dislodged, it plugged out a hose, which I believe was a breather. It's in a very inaccessible part of the boat, and I had to do a little bit of contortioning tricks to reach that place and put it back. And it was squirting a little bit of fuel at a time, and it was very difficult to figure out where it was coming from. But yep, that happened. And engine, yes, I did have a problem with the engine after Cape Town, because I realized that it was struggling to deliver power, and that usually happens when the fuel supply is a problem. So I took out the pre-filter, I drained it out of all water and muck, and filled it with fuel and put it back and tried to run it. Didn't work. Then I, so you access the pre-filter from here and the fuel filter from here. I went and checked the fuel filter, and I put fuel in it and tightened it, and it ran exactly for 30 seconds, which meant that the fuel from the fuel filter was going into the engine and working. But for some reason, fuel was not coming into the fuel filter. And then I slept over it for 12 hours. Kept wondering what is the problem. I needed the engine to get into Tasmania. And finally, I thought I'll check the tank, and I disconnected the hose from the tank, and there was no fuel coming out of it. So it was that particular valve that was blocked. And thankfully there was another valve, and I shifted, and everything worked nice.
Was there any point that you thought, I'm not going to be able to fix this?
No, all problems were fixable. It was constantly sapping my attention, energy, and everything. And it's like there was no reason for the mainsail to split, to be honest. It happened in some 10-15 knot winds. My spinnaker pole broke in 10 knot winds. Everything was fine. I had the Yankee pulled out 10-15 knots or something, and suddenly there was a gust which went up to 20, and the boat heeled, and there was pressure on the sail, and it snapped in two, and then everything was back to normal, as if nothing happened. While I was coming in 10 knot winds, my spinnaker snagged on the mast and had a 4-meter rip, which I repaired.
If you were going to do it again, I guess you would want to spend more time with the boat ahead of the race in order to iron out any kind of snags.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I did in 2012-13. I did 27,000 miles of sailing on that boat. I sorted out every problem, and in 5 months on that 56-footer, I just had 1 ton head sail. That's it.
So I know you were the last entrant to sign up for the race, so I guess time was tight for you to be able to do that.
Yes, there were a lot of reasons for that. One is that I did not want to put my money into the race. It was quite impossible because I didn't have money. Secondly, unlike, let's say if I were living in Europe, you're around boats. You can always check out some boat and strike a deal, or you can start working like that even before you put the money on the table, which was not possible for me. So yes, because of a lot of these reasons, there were delays, and work started only when I had money committed.
And when you were fixing these problems, was there a go-to book that you went to, or is this all in your head?
I used to do intense visualization. I used to, for example, going up the mast to repair the running backstay. Intense visualization. So I just tacked the boat, took the strain on the port starboard runner, and then visualized how to go up. If I go up, what are the tools that I need? So make a list of tools. How do I carry it? That. What am I going to replace it with? So if it's steel wire, how do I carry the steel wire all the way up? Once I reach there, how do I connect it to the point? If option A, shackle doesn't work, what do I do? So I carried 3 kinds of shackles, hoping one would work. If the shackle worked, then I carried a what do you call it, a cable tie so that I can tie it. If the shackle doesn't work, then I carried a line which was 8 mm. And how much of line do I need? I needed to make 2 loops, so I thought it will give me the strength of a 32 mm, minus of course the breaking strength of the knots. So the knot doesn't come undone. I thought I'd tape it with insulation tape, so I carried insulation tape. And for some reason, if this doesn't work, I carried another line which was, I think 16 or 14 mm. So I carried 2 coils on my shoulders, climbed all the way up, and then finally I used the wire, which was actually my guardrail. I used that, and see this one. That's actually a guardrail. And when I was there at the top, I realized that the starboard one was disintegrating. So I decided to put the second runner that I was taking with me. I decided to make that into a standby for the starboard runner, which came in handy because in the 30 knot gale I had in the North Atlantic, I was not even using the starboard runner, it just fell off. But I already had a solution in place. So it was intense visualization for about 2 hours, followed by eating something, loading up calories, because you don't want to be stuck there for 2 hours and feeling hungry and stuff like that. That's how I tackled every problem.
And do you think you picked the best route?
For the information that I had with me, the answer is yes, except for the South Atlantic high, which I got stuck in on the way out, which was my fault.
And how did you go about picking that course without modern technology and with no weather facts on board?
Well, my primary aim was to complete the circumnavigation because, I had the baggage from the last one, and a position was not clearly important to me at that time. So I believe that with very little weather information, you can do a circumnavigation if you've got experience. And as far as the real bad weather is concerned, you know that GGR will give you a warning.
And do you regret any of your decisions?
Yeah, some of them. I changed the mainsail when the primary mainsail ripped the first time. I changed it, and then I realized that the second mainsail was bigger with only 2 reefs. Right. I should ideally change it back, but I didn't, which created some problems. So there were these little things which, of course, I mean, in hindsight, I could have done it differently.
What sort of problems did the mainsail with 2 reefs give you?
Well, you need a third reef in the Southern Ocean. You need a small sail because, half MB square, wind picks up, wind doubles, the force on it becomes 4 times, and you need to change gear, and that was not happening. So I resorted to easing the luff tension, if the wind exceeded. But easing the luff tension meant that the sail was pressing against the spreaders too much, and the batten was pressing into the spreader, and it broke and punctured a hole, and then it was more stitching.
I laugh, but it's like catalogue after catalogue, isn't it?
It's purely lack of experience on this particular boat. So let's say if with this experience, I prepare the boat now, I think I can just do it without any problem.
Okay. And Dom's made a lot of mention of your secret sail. You and I talked about your secret sail, which doesn't exist. So describe to me how you got the best out of the sails that you had.
So the thing is, I got Dick Copeland, who's done the basic design for the sails. B, I'm a pilot with the Navy, and I was trained by the Indian Air Force, where just to clear your classes, you needed 98% at least, and aerodynamics and all were high-scoring subjects. And I think I must have done something right because people think that big sail means better lift, but big sail also means more drag. So you need to figure out the CL by CD ratio, which leads you to a high aspect ratio sail. But high aspect ratio sails are not so easily trimmed. So you figure out that perfect balance, and that comes with a little bit of experience. And another thing that I religiously did was I was trimming the topping lift to get the correct twist always. And that helps a lot in moderate to light winds. Heavy winds, your trim is not so important as much as the size of the sail.
And you mentioned before that you are more than happy isolated on the ocean, but how did you deal with those moments of frustration, like the high pressure entering Cape Town?
Yes, so I had to resolve that I had to kind of, bring my focus back to the fact that for me, the primary aim was to finish it, right? Racing is a secondary aim. And with that, it became more okay.
And you said you were going to do a lot of meditation on this trip, did you?
In a way, yes, because I found that my body still carried the trauma of the last, not just the last accident where I broke my back, but also the accident which happened from Gihon to the Sable d'Olonne. I resorted to very focused breathing. I kept doing that, and that really, really helped.
And what was the lowest point in the race for you?
I think that was the day when the mainsail split and the backstay parted. I was like, one problem is fine, but two problems is like too much. And every time I was like, now it's done and I'm going to gain on Kirsten, and there's another silly problem, unbelievably silly, stupid problem. So when I look back, out of all the problems, the collision and running backstay, a mainsail split, or the wind pilot paddle, if any one had not happened, I might have landed up here with her.
Yeah.
At least.
And the highest point of the race?
I think I really loved getting into Tasmania. Kind of a reset for me, and I was really lucky that there was a storm that day, so it kind of aided my decision to stay overnight there, and it was a complete reset for me.
And what was the worst storm you sailed through, and what tactics did you use?
I think that would have been what happened on the 7th of February. I had, I think, 45 gusting 60, 70 or something, with waves 6 meter average, which means I must have faced 12 meter waves, and just put the boat downwind, dead down, with a little bit of head sail. Not downwind, sorry, down wave. I mean, really perpendicular to the waves, down the waves, and that really worked well. And I had 2 knockdowns, but both are because of a wave that came from the beam, not because of boat bore in and then I had a knockdown.
Yes, because were you expecting so many cross seas? Because there seemed
It was not a cross sea that was as bad as I saw in 2018. This is like, you get one of those waves in, let's say, 4 or 5 hours, and then one out of 2 or 3 of the waves are like huge because of the interference that happens. They keep, when they scientifically, if 2 waves intersect at 120 degrees, they build up a lot. So you have that freak wave, and it's quite possible that the freak wave might pass 5 cables behind you, 5 cables ahead of you, and it might find you. If it finds you, you get a knockdown.
Was there any point that you thought of giving up, and how did you get through that?
Cape on. I gave up, I came back. No kidding. No, I mean, it was always about repair and move.
And what would you do differently if you were to do the race again?
I'll do everything exactly in the same way. Have the same team, have everything same, except I'll probably have 1 year handy and do at least a north-south sail. Yeah, that's one big thing I'll do differently.
What's next? What will happen to the boat?
The boat belongs to Bayonet, so they'll probably use it to motivate youngsters in the United Arab Emirates. I think that was the plan in the beginning. I hope they've not changed it.
Will you be sorry to leave her, or
No.
have you've had enough time with her?
No, not that. But I believe that the life of a boat is a skipper, right? And when I leave the boat's character changes. When some other skipper comes, it assumes the character of that skipper. So in that sense, when I left Turia, which sank, I didn't feel too sorry because we both need to be together for the boat to get that character. It's like a soul and a body.
And advice to 2026 skippers, what would you do?
Prepare hard, as in really prepare hard. And there's no substitute for experience. The thing is, Don has placed this GGR in such a way that it looks achievable because it's not too much money. The entry qualifications are 2,000 miles of single-handed, 8,000 of any sort of sailing. The entry barriers are not too high, but fact is, the amount of skills that you need to do a race like this is tremendous. Especially because there is no communication aid. You cannot call a team and ask them for advice for repairs. You cannot. It's just you and the boat, you know.
And was this race psychologically more difficult for you than 2018 due to the events of 2018?
Absolutely, yes.
And how did you kind of come to terms with that?
Well, the primary aim of doing this race was to complete it and get rid of the stigma that I had with respect to the 2018 race, losing a boat. It's not right. It required a lot of effort because the accumulated memory of the two accidents, the collision and this one, the dismasting. So yes, it took a lot of effort to keep myself calm, which I achieved through breathing, and yeah.
Oh